Ja, ik ga op het straks.
And what a nice evening this is. What a nice evening this is. Welcome all to Crea. I'm Simon van der Sleen, I work here. This is, well, I just said a beautiful evening. I'm very honored you're all here. I'd like to mention two fire exits, one over there and one there. And if you'd like a big applause for Leonard Ornstein, our moderator. This is
Well, thank you very much. My name is Leonard Ornstein. I'm an independent journalist from the television program Buitenhof, which you have seen, of course. Everybody here is politically interested. Well, this is a very special evening. Yeah, can you hear me? Like this. This will be a very special evening. This is, of course, an emotional debate. There are many people who have strong positions in this debate, but we would like to have really a rational and reasonable evening in which we will listen to all the views of everybody, in which we will have a fruitful discussion, and of course the audience will get a possibility to raise questions. But I have to say, this evening is hosted by Crea, everybody knows, organized by Faculty for Israeli-Palestinian Peace, European and US student movement. And this movement tries to encourage European involvement in upholding international law in the international Israeli-Palestinian conflict by targeting leaders of tomorrow through events like these in European universities and hosting and educating internship sessions in Israel and the Palestinian territories. And we really like to have tonight also a kind of interesting, encouraging meeting between the two views. Today the evening will consist of interviews, not really debates. So every speaker, and I will introduce them later on of course, will get some time to give his view, to introduce himself, to introduce his opinion and ideas on this, as a Dutchman, let's say, terrible conflict which lasts now so long and, in my eyes, too long. And it's an honor to me to introduce the first person to you. First I will name you all the people who will participate tonight, and that's Mr. Den Broeke. He's a respected member of the VVD in the Tweede Kamer, Second Chamber, spokesman for Foreign Affairs and Defense, and one of the main proponents behind the current move towards intensifications of ties. Just finished a visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories. And Mr. Den Broeke will be the first person which I will interview. The second one is another very respected member of parliament, Harry van Bommel. He is, as everybody knows here, critically of the Israeli role of occupation, and he is also critical of the Dutch government's positions on Israel. Very special guest we have tonight, and that's the ambassador of Israel, Chaim Bivon. He is ambassador to the Netherlands, and before he was ambassador to a very lovely country named Canada. He was also an ambassador to Ethiopia. He has a degree in law and worked in Israel for the Agency for International Development, zeg maar ontwikkelingssamenwerking in het Nederlands. Also a very respected, and we are very happy he's here, is Ambassador Nabil Abu Naid. I hope I pronounced it well. I studied a little bit on it. Head of the General Delegation of Palestine, PhD International Relations, from confrontation to negotiations. He was a chargé d'affaires mission to the United States, a member of the Palestinian delegation that participated in the peace talk in Annapolis in November 2007. Well, first we will have the interviews with the guests. First they will make their statements. Then I will raise some questions to them, and then the floor is to you. And I will repeat the floor to you in the way that you have the possibility to raise questions, not to make statements. Please do that afterwards. You can discuss with some of the guests, but not please in this here this evening in this debate. There was a diplomatic support of Israel, as we all know, by the Dutch government. At the same time, we can see that there is a military occupation of the West Bank. There is criticism of Israel in the Netherlands, also criticism to the Palestinians. My role will be to raise critical questions to all the guests. So if you want to target one of the guests, don't do it to me. I will raise the critical questions. Hans ten Broeke, I invite you to come behind the table. Thank you.
Can you hear me up there? Because I'm not quite sure whether this microphone
change of the rules.
Okay. Well, let me just propose something. I think it's rather unfair if you ask these people not to make statements, because everybody has such a well-rounded idea about this conflict already. I'm okay with making a statement. If you want me to make a statement, but I think more or less everybody knows what we're in for. I think too much statements and too much speeches have been made on this conflict anyhow. So why not just have an interactive debate between the audience and myself, and you with your critical questions, as I know you. I mean, I would be perfectly happy to make a statement, but I think too much speeches have been done about this anyway.
Yes.
We do it in your interview time. We do it like this. No problem at all.
It gives you more time, and maybe the audience as well.
Let's not forget to tell to everybody. I hope this mic is working. That if you want to become a member, because this I forgot to tell you, for the Israeli-Palestinian peace idea of European and US student movements, please don't forget to fill out this interesting paper.
I just
1 minute.
You want me to make a statement?
4 minutes.
Okay, well, let me then just take a minute, because you insist so much. I'm a spokesman for foreign affairs now for a little bit over 6 months, and as you can imagine, the Middle East conflict is probably the evergreen of topics when you become a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as a spokesman for foreign affairs. And although this past half year, this past 6 months were extremely interesting because of what people call the Arab Spring, I'm not so fond of what I call the Vivaldization of what happens in the Arab Street myself. I wouldn't like to call it a spring nor winter. I'm neither a pessimist nor an optimist. I hope to be a pragmatist and a realist. It has been overshadowing a little bit the Middle Eastern conflict as we know it, the Palestinian-Israel conflict. For me to get an understanding, as you just said, I traveled to Israel as well as to the West Bank. Obviously, I wasn't able to go to Gaza, but I was very close to Gaza. I also saw the Iron Dome system that, thank God, within the last 2 hours, I believe, actually worked by intercepting yet another rocket attack that was launched from the Gaza Strip. I also spoke to Erakat. I haven't been able yet to speak to the ambassador, but I hope that we can see each other soon now, the ambassador for the Palestinian territories. And the basic idea that I got is that one has to, if you want to understand and fully grasp this whole conflict, you have to immerse yourself by simple seeing the distances. You cannot simply understand what this means if you do not travel the distances. The distances between the north, Golan Heights, within 2 hours you're in Jerusalem, basically. I didn't have any trouble, and I was with a Palestinian driver as well, to been waving through the checkpoints, and we did not have any particular signs on us, so that was okay to me. But also, very quickly, you are at the border of the Gaza Strip, Within a little bit over an hour, you are in Tel Aviv, which is a completely different world from Jerusalem. From my last visit, I remember Jerusalem not being so orthodox as it was right now. I thought that was a bit disappointing, but okay, I can understand, because the conflict also within Israel is also polarizing a lot, which I can understand too. Because what both peoples here want, it is not, in my view, a territorial conflict in the first and foremost base. It is a conflict about security. It is a conflict about trust. It is a conflict about two peoples that do want to live in a peaceful environment for themselves, for their children, but for so long and for so many reasons, and for so many politicians not being able to cast away their own shadows, they have not been able to make that peace. Many times it's been tried, and I can say a lot of things about all these attempts from both sides. I'm mostly disappointed about what happened on the Palestinian side. You might have another idea or another view about that. Let me just say what I expect, or what I hope, because that is what we should share at the end of this evening. What I hope is that within a year, but I expect that not within this year, for the simple fact that the two leaders of the countries are expecting to be re-elected, and I think they will. President Obama will be re-elected, I think. Benjamin Netanyahu will also be re-elected. Both of them face an election campaign, and I can only hope that both of them will be able to make that peace. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, visited The Hague a bit over a month ago. It was Chaim, I think. Harry and I, we had the opportunity to ask him questions. My questions to Netanyahu was, Sir, are you the man who's going to make peace? And his answer was quite definitive, and I would like to keep him to that. He said, if there's one person who can make peace, and you might believe this or not, it is me. Now, we all know that Benjamin Netanyahu is not lacking ego, but let's just hope that he will live up to this. And I think he can. Peace in the Middle East is not going to be made by doves. It's going to be made by skillful politicians like Netanyahu. It's going to be made by people that understand the security needs that Israel legitimately has. And if only the two sides can meet that, we will see that peace come about. And let's hope 2013 will be the year.
Very interesting opening of this evening. I think it's because tonight we're discussing also the Dutch policy towards the Middle East conflict. And sure. I think a lot of people here in the audience want to know, why is this government, let's say so, pro-Israel and not critical of the role of Israel, critical to the Palestinians and not the other way around? What is behind that? Is that Mr. Wilders of the PVV? Mm-hmm. What's happening here? Explain us.
I'm so happy that I can explain. Yeah, I explained it many times, but for whatever reason, this explanation is not often repeated. For the simple fact that this country is completely mesmerized by the guy with the hair, Geert Wilders. And I can understand that. But there's actually two ways of going about this. One can actually say he doesn't exist, or he shouldn't exist, but he does. And one can also do what we do. We have taken him seriously. We take him to his word. And we wrote, and that is the Christian Democratic Party and the Liberal Party. Actually, it was my counterpart, Henk-Jan Ormel, who is the foreign affairs spokesman, and myself. When we wrote down what we call the regeerakkoord, so the accord that makes the accord between the two parties that form the government, we inserted the passage on Israel. By the way, the last government did that too. Many people tend to forget that, but okay. Why did we insert that passage? We inserted the passage not, I repeat, and I've said this many times also in Parliament, Harry van Bommel knows that, and the PVV has actually also corroborated with this story. We have inserted it not to pacify the PVV. Yeah. It was the other way around. what actually is in the Regeerakkoord is the two-state solution, 67 borders, and that we should invest in that. Now, everybody who knows a little about the convictions of Mr. Wilders on the Israel-Palestinian conflict knows that he will never surrender to that idea. His idea is that there is a Palestinian state, which is called Jordan, which I think it's an idiotic idea. But because we know him so well, and because we do not have his signature under the foreign and defense and European paragraph, as you all know, we could not afford him to bring down the government on this, for him, very dear topic. That is the reason why we have inserted this specific paragraph, this specific passage into the Regeerakkoord that is owned, this chapter, is owned by Christian Democrats and liberals alike. That's why we did that, for no other reason. I know that it's very popular to look at it from another way. Yes, this is a pro-Israel government, like many governments before. The difference with the last government might potentially be that the last government had, for example, Maxime Verhagen, who was very pro-Israel. When he visited Jerusalem to explain the Dutch position, at the same time we had Mr. Koenders playing football with Palestinians kids on the Gaza beach. One might say, but that's interesting. But that's a very double message that you send. Yeah. Well, this government is not sending double messages.
But what is the most effective way? To get peace. You think why?
The most effective way is this, because this is the time. I mean, let's not over dramatize how much the importance of the Netherlands is. We are a small country. We're one of the 27 in the European Union. If the European Union can console itself around one position, that is the most effective thing we can do. But since we do have very good relations with Israel, and we make no bones about that, we can actually exercise influence on the Israeli government. And we are doing that. And I can give you proof of that.
Do you think it's in the advantage of the Palestinians that there will be a unity government between Fatah and Hamas? What do you say as a Dutch parliamentarian towards that kind of developments?
The unity government between those two parties will always be some kind of an independent one. It will either ask of, for example, Hamas that they denounce their statutes of annihilating the state of Israel, which I think everybody should want. I mean, I could not be at this table if I know that at the same time you want to kill me. I mean, that you can understand that I would not feel the urge to sit at this table. Maybe if all these people would like to protect me, but if that would also not be the case, then you could not blame me for not willing to sit down with you.
So you think the most effective is when Hamas recognize the right of Israel, for example?
They should. Another solution would be, it's basically the solution that was chosen by the Palestinian authorities. It also immediately stems from the Oslo Accords, and the quartet is trying to uphold that still. We can talk later whether that is realistic or feasible or not. That somebody who's respected, somebody that is taking a position that indeed recognizes the right of Israel to existence and existence and security, that they would form some kind of unity with the people of the Palestinian authorities. And actually, I know that this has been tried many, many times. It has failed, unfortunately, it has failed. So far, Palestinians also on that part, they simply do not form that unity that one seeks if you want to make peace between the two states that all of us are longing for.
Did you discuss with him the issue of stop building at the territories? What did he say to you, Mr. Netanyahu?
Maybe yes, I did. Maybe you should ask this to the Israeli ambassador that is
we will do later.
That has come here. Handy Phone was there. Because I think I was actually not just the first, because I was one of the first to speak, but I was actually basically the only one who brought up the settlement issue with him.
And what did he say
to
to you about the settlement issue?
Israeli people didn't. Wasn't that so, Mr. Ambassador?
But what did Mr. Netanyahu say to you about the settlement issue, or to
Well,
your people, your members of parliament?
Listen, he basically said what he said to Newsweek. If you've seen the interview, he came up with a very convincing story that basically the whole settlement policy was not so much about building like this, but building like this. There's a lot to it, and there are certainly aspects that I can see. But the bottom line is that we regard the settlement policy of Israel to be illegal. It should be stopped. It should be frozen, and that's what we're striving for. And they did that. They did that for about 9 months. Unfortunately, the Palestinians, they didn't seize the moment. But
well, it's not polite to laugh at someone who tries to explain.
No, but then you have to tell the truth.
And you have not to shout, please. We try to do a reasonable and rational debate.
So,
please, we are friends. You get the word later on. We try to raise honest questions
it is a position that is well known. It's a position that I support, and I also said that to Netanyahu. So as far as criticizing the Israeli government, that's not new to me.
Okay. In the end, do you think it's effective the way? Yes, you think so. This is the effective way of your.
I think
but in the end, the even-handed policy. Don't you think that both parties are not respecting you more when you are even-handed? And this a question we can also raise.
We are even-handed. We are even-handed because let me explain this to you. Many people then ask, so why do you not punish the Israelis when they actually build their settlements?
Yeah.
And I then say, okay, we could easily do that to the Palestinians as well, and we're not pulling out with our subsidies either. I mean, there's a lot of force on me. For example, from Christian parties, from the PVV, there could very easily be a majority in the Dutch parliament to actually stop the subsidies, the enormous subsidies that we give to the Palestinian authorities. We don't do that either. And you know why? Because it is not productive. In this case, I do agree there is more carrot than there is stick, but the carrots work. And we have a little bit of influence to play, and we play it on both sides. We also have to respect, I saw that myself, I spoke with Saib Erika at length. He gave me almost 1.5 hours of his time, while 27 ambassadors were waiting in the other room. We have a lot of respect still from the Palestinian authorities as well. And we do not stop our good relationship with them either.
Last question. Peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. You think it's impossible in your lifetime?
No, it is not. I'm a liberal. I'm an optimist. I hope to
like
work
Mr.
for it. And yeah, but when, it's not. Yeah, well, he's an optimist too, and I think I think all of us need that. But as I said, my hope is very much for the next year. I hope that we will see it takes courageous politicians to make that step. And sometimes courageous politicians also need to do what is in the interest of the people, but also of sustaining their power. This is always the balance that we need to strike. I think Netanyahu could be the person who does that. I hope he will. I'm quite sure that Obama, after making such a dreadful start in Cairo, has learned how he needs to do that. My hopes are for 2013. I hope we will see something there.
Thank you very much. Well, wow. Let's start there. Yes, please, your name and, if possible, a short question.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline.
No, there, the person there. Excuse me. Ladies first, but you are the next one, yeah. Yeah, gaat er nog maar naartoe. Yeah. You are the second. You get the second question. Yeah?
Yeah, my name is Pim. We're talking here about the interests of the Palestinians and the Israelis. Of course, Mr. Tambouki states that he's a realist and a pragmatist, which is something I think good for a Dutch politician. But then, to what extent is it in the Dutch interest that we are so pro-Israel at this time in this policy?
I think the being pro-Israel is highly overstated. If one looks at the NRC Handelsblad this evening, they have a little bit of a campaign going on. trying to paint Rosenthal and the positions he takes as being extremely pro-Israel. It actually de soep is niet zo heet, wordt niet zo heet gegeten als die is opgediend. Excuse me if I will explain this later to you. It's a very good Dutch expression, but I don't know the translation immediately. What has happened, for example, tonight or this week is there are 6 reports made up by the European ambassadors. And what the Dutch have done, and this is relatively new in the diplomatic circles, but I think it's rather wise, the Dutch have said, it's okay, we know that all these reports are there, we will take a decision on it, we will strive for even-handedness and balanced and fair views. We do have our own position here. Let's just have some kind of a disclaimer that what the ambassadors have came up with, by simply accepting these reports, we also accept all the conclusions. Which I think is fair, because the ambassadors, with all due respect, are not the political level. The political level is the European Council. There, they should formulate one position, preferably. Now, this is what Uri Rosenthal has done. He has also done that in the previous case, and some people want to see this as some kind of an uneven-handedness. Like, for example, they also see the fact that we inserted a paragraph on Israel in the Regeerakkoord as something that is, we want to, Leonard Ornstein just asked me, is it probably because you want to be friends with Geert Wilders? No, it is the opposite. But I'm telling you a story already for 1.5 years. It's the opposite. I'm telling you this for 1.5 years, and I made that sentence. So I think I should know, don't you?
Thank you very much. The lady there who just started, please.
Jacqueline, I have one question. Is it if you want to have peace, you should talk, I think, with your enemy. And the enemy of Israel is Hamas. So I think the only way you get peace, and everybody's always saying if you want to have peace, you talk with your enemy. Can you say something about that?
Very clear question.
Sure. One cannot make make peace with one's friends. One should make peace with one's enemies, and one does so by talking to them. However, I think also talks with. I mean, we don't immediately see that, but I think in Cairo some of these talks are actually happening. What is the most essential thing is here that if one does these talks, and these talks are sponsored, and they have a name. It's the Oslo Accords. This is the parameters around which we agreed that peace can happen. And the peace sponsors are also in favor of that. Because peace will not happen without the sponsors, the United States, the UN, Europe, Russia. Now, if one does that, then one needs to feel comfortable with the person on the other side. So many promises already, for example, by Arafat, were broken or not made after he agreed in a.
You can't say I'm not talking to you because I don't like you. Of course you don't like you.
No, they don't need to like or love each other. They will probably not, but they need to live in peace with each other. That is what the outset of these talks is, and if a regime like Hamas is constantly threatening you and your civilian population with a massive load of rockets.
Yeah, but who have been killed the last few days? It's maybe not safe for Israel,
Yeah, who has
it's
been
not
killed?
very safe for the Palestinians, and they are each other enemies. So
well, the difference is that the Israeli government actually protects their own people. I've seen these places. I've been to these places. Over there, when children play in the playgrounds, they also have. They make sure that these children, even if they can't escape to the cellars, the anti-bomb cellars, they can also be safe when they are targeted in rockets indiscriminately, and that is not happening in the Gaza Strip, I'm afraid to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Van den Broeke. Yeah, because I would like to give the floor also to Mr. Harry van Bommel. If you have a very short question, it's no problem, but yeah, a very short question, please.
I've been 3 years after each other to the West Bank. And every year when I'm there is less land for the Palestinians. There are Israeli flags around the whole West Bank. And how can they protect themselves? Every day they destroy the olive trees, they steal the water, they damage the houses, they kill the people, they arrest little children. How can you say the Israeli needs to protect the children and the other way around? They can't, and the army is watching how the kids are getting into the jeep.
Okay. Thanks very much. What was your name?
José van Leeuwen.
Okay, thank you very much. This was the last question in this round, and then we go to Mr. Harry van Boom.
And then
José and I know each other a bit, and I will say this to her for not for the first time, I'm afraid. This, in my opinion, is an unbalanced, very unbalanced view. I have been to the West Bank myself. I've also been to the projects that are supported by the Dutch, for example, where we make sure that the Palestinians are able to have their own security force. And up to the highest level, between both Palestinians and Israeli security people, they are actually quite pleased with the way things are working. Slowly but surely, they're making sure that at the West Bank, indeed, a security situation is arising where they are jointly responsible for it. And let me just say one more thing. This government, I mean, the government that is now incumbent, the Netanyahu government, obviously you are very critical about it. So am I from time to time. I also put some questions on the olive trees that were destroyed last week. So I want to know all the details about that too. Yeah, I know.
You have to go to Van Bommel now.
But it was Netanyahu's first government who actually gave 40% of the territory. That was even unexpected. So please be fair and balanced and look at it from.
Thank you very much. Please an applause.